All right, if you're prepping for the UPSC exams, you know the economic survey is an absolute must-read. So in this explainer, we're going to cut right to the chase and break down the 2025-26 survey into its most critical highlights. We'll give you the key data, the core concepts, and the big picture themes you're going to need. Let's dive right in.
So, what's the big picture for 2025? Well, honestly, it's a story of remarkable strength. India is seeing some of its best macroeconomic performance in decades. But, and this is a big but, our economy is deeply woven into the global system. And that system, well, it's getting more and more unpredictable.
And that brings us to the absolute core theme of this year's survey, what it calls the paradox of 2025. This quote just nails the tension perfectly. On one hand, you've got this incredibly robust, high-growth domestic economy. And on the other, you have these powerful global headwinds just pushing right back against it. If you can get your head around this one idea, you've unlocked the whole survey. So, here's our game plan. First, we'll dig into that central paradox. Then, we'll look at the anchors keeping our economy stable. After that, we'll check out what's fueling our growth engines, see how India's gearing up for the future, and finally, we'll talk about why reforming the state's own capacity is so crucial. Okay, so what does this paradox actually look like? Well, it means that even when we're doing everything right, strong growth, inflation under control, we're still vulnerable to shocks from outside. Think geopolitical tensions suddenly putting pressure on the rupee, or other countries changing their trade policies without warning. Basically, our internal strength is in a constant stress test against external chaos. So with all those headwinds blowing, what's keeping our ship steady? The survey is really clear on this. It all comes down to the anchors of macroeconomic stability. The stable environment is the absolute bedrock of India's economic resilience. It's the foundation for everything else. And the headline number that proves this stability is right here, a projected real GDP growth of 7.4%. I mean, come on, this isn't just a number. It means India is set to be the fastest growing major economy for the fourth year in a row. For your exam answers, this is the prime indicator of our economic momentum. Next up, fiscal health. The government is aiming for a fiscal deficit of 4.4% of GDP. Now, this shows a real commitment to what's called the fiscal glide path, which is just a fancy way of saying there's a clear roadmap to bring the deficit down over time. Sticking to this plan is a huge credibility booster and a fantastic point to make when you're writing about government finances. So what about prices? Are things getting more expensive? Well, look at this. Headline inflation is down to just 1.7% between April and December. That is huge. It means price pressures are well managed, which protects people's purchasing power and creates a really stable environment for both spending and investment. And here's the payoff, beautifully illustrated. India got not one, not two, but 3 sovereign credit rating upgrades in 2025. This isn't just us saying we're doing well. This is the world's top agencies looking at the books and saying, yep, India's fiscal management and economic strength are the real deal. It's a massive stamp of approval. Okay, so we've got this stable foundation. Now let's talk about what's actually built on top of it. What's driving the growth? This next bit is all about the key sectors and policies that are really firing up India's economic engines. And this is a fantastic high-yield summary for you. You've got the PLI schemes, which are turbocharging domestic manufacturing in key sectors. Then there's PM Gati Shakti, which is completely revolutionizing how we plan infrastructure by bringing everything onto one single map. And of course, the National Manufacturing Mission provides that long-term vision. These are the key policy levers you've got to know. Now, here's a really important insight from the survey. India's growth story is, well, it's unique. See, a lot of countries followed a very traditional path, build factories, then grow. But India's growth has been massively powered by the services sector, especially digital services that can be delivered anywhere. It's a different, and in many ways, a very modern path. All right, so the survey isn't just about what's happening today. It's got a laser focus on building a future-ready India. In this next section, we're going to look at how we're thinking about big future trends, like AI, how we're managing our growing cities, and how we're bracing for some pretty complex global risks. When it comes to artificial intelligence, India is facing a really crucial balancing act. You can see it laid out here. On one side, we want strategic autonomy, not being too dependent on foreign AI and protecting our key sectors. But on the other hand, we need global integration so we can tap into the best innovations from around the world. The survey says the trick isn't choosing one, but finding that perfect sweet spot in between. The survey also flags some tricky global risks, like something it calls the QE infinity trap. Sounds complex, right? But let's just break it down. For years, big Western economies have kept money super cheap to boost growth. The risk, the trap, is that this can create unstable financial bubbles. And for India, the danger is that when those bubbles eventually pop, the shockwaves can hit us, affecting everything from our stock market to the rupee. So where is all this future growth actually going to happen? The answer is clear. In our cities. And we're not just talking about Delhi and Mumbai. The survey makes a huge point that India's future will be powered by our Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. I mean, just look at the projected growth for places like Surat, Agra, and Bengaluru. They're expected to be some of the fastest growing cities on the planet. All right, for our final section, we're going to talk about something that honestly underpins everything else we discussed, and that's reforming the state's capacity. Because listen, you can have the best policies in the world, but if you don't have effective governance to actually make them happen, they're just words on a page. This part is critical. And here are a few of the key reforms that are aiming to do just that. You've got the new Securities Markets Code, which cleans up and modernizes financial rules. There's Mission Karma Yogi, a massive effort to upskill our civil servants for the challenges of the 21st century. And then you have the task force that's all about slashing red tape to make it way easier to do business. But it's more than just a few new rules. There's a fundamental change in philosophy going on here. The survey highlights a big shift away from an old model of government as a regulator and controller towards a new one of government as an enabler and a facilitator. It's about building a state that empowers growth, not one that gets in the way. So, what's the final message? What's the one thing to take away from all this? I think it's captured perfectly in this powerful line from the survey. The journey to becoming a developed nation, that's a marathon. It's long. But the world is changing so fast that we have to run that marathon with the speed and intensity of a sprint. It just perfectly sums up the challenge ahead. And that leaves us with the big, thought-provoking question for the future. We have this clear goal, Viksit Bharat by 2047. The domestic engines are fired up and ready to go. The ultimate test, as the survey so brilliantly frames it, is whether India can navigate these stormy global seas and somehow turn these powerful headwinds we face today into the tailwinds that will carry us forward tomorrow.